my case stay getting looked at.
Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today I'm going to be ranking all 18 Criminal Enterprises DLC vehicles that were added, you guessed it, with the Criminal Enterprises DLC into Grand Theft Auto Online. Now before we get into this list, there is something that I absolutely have to tell you. This list is 100% factual and cannot be argued with. Everything that I say in this list is 100% undisputable fact. If you cannot accept this term and these conditions, then you should exit off of the video immediately. However, if you are willing to hear me out and understand that I am 100% correct, we can proceed into the video, and we will, starting right now, with the worst car from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. And the worst car from the Criminal Enterprises DLC is the BF Weevil Custom. Now the BF Weevil Custom was released semi-recently into Grand Theft Auto Online through the drip feed with this DLC, and it is, in my opinion, the absolute worst vehicle from the entire DLC. Costing $1.85 million when all said and done once you've purchased the Weevil and then purchased the upgrade to make it into the Weevil Custom, it becomes this thing. Now this is not even counting all the other upgrades that you can do within Benny's that are very expensive, by the way, I should say. I am not ignorant to the fact that you can get the Weevil for free, by the way. I do understand that you can do this through English Dave missions. However, I hate English Dave, so I would never do those missions. So I'm basing this off of my experience with the Weevil Custom. $1.85 million for a car that, well, sucks. This thing is just simply not very good. In a straight line, it is rather quick. However, as soon as you come to a corner, like in true muscle car fashion, this thing, well, doesn't turn. It's very hard to get this thing to drive, let alone go around a corner. I really don't like the Weevil Custom. I think that it's a very cool concept. I just think that it was poorly executed. However, there is one redeeming factor with this. You can, of course, do wheelies with it, which don't work very well, so it's not even really a redeeming factor. So that's it for this vehicle. This is the worst one from the entire DLC. However, there are more that are, well, just simply not very good, and this thing has rightfully been drowned, it looks like. So now seems like a great time to move on. The second worst vehicle from the Criminal Enterprises DLC is the Radiosa 300 wide body. Now this thing is a little bit on the cheaper end at least, so that is semi-good. However, for the price, it's not very good. Now the Briosa 300, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of it at the best of times, but with the wide body kit, it is a little bit cooler, I must say, which is why I couldn't rank this thing as the worst vehicle from this DLC. However, the wide body kit hasn't really done anything super positive for the Briosa 300. It's slightly better at handling, maybe, and it also looks a little bit cooler, but other than that, there's really no improvement. It is a little bit faster, it's got a slightly higher top speed, but generally I feel like it's not that much of an improvement, and considering that this thing costs $1.2 million, I really don't see the point in the Briosa 300 wide body. Now, I'm sure there are some of you who will like this thing. I don't even hate this thing, I just want to put that out there. I just think that, well, I would have rather had some other car into the game rather than just a wide body kit for the Briosa that we already have. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the Briosa wide body. It's the second worst vehicle from the DLC. Let's move on to the third worst vehicle from the DLC. Next up, we have the Dinka Postlude. What a strange name. Anyways, the Dinka Postlude is the third worst vehicle from this DLC. However, I must say this thing is a lot better than the previous two vehicles we've gone over. So this would be in the next tier. The previous two vehicles would be an F tier. This thing is definitely a C tier vehicle because it does have a lot of customization, and it also has relatively good performance. It could be better. It could be a lot worse though. So I will say this thing is actually a pretty good vehicle. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that I don't like about this car is it is front wheel drive, meaning that it has pretty horrendous handling, especially under power. If you're accelerating through a corner with this thing, the understeer is, well, it's bad. It's really bad. Overall, I think that the Postlude, for the price that it costs, which is quite extreme, $1 million if you have the trade price unlocked, and about $1.3 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked, I think is a little bit too expensive for a car that's, well, this kind of bad. It does have some cool options, it does have cool customization. A lot of people are actually going to like this car. However, compared to some of the other vehicles from this DLC, it's just simply not that good. So that's it for the Dinka Postlude. Let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up, we have yet another Dinka vehicle. This is the Dinka Ballista Kanjo S SJ. The Dinka Ballista Kanjo SJ goes for just over $1 million if you have the trade price unlocked, and if you don't have the trade price, you're going to be paying about $1.4 million for this car. This thing is better than the post-loot in pretty much every single way. It actually handles a little bit nicer. It has just as much customization, if not maybe more, I would even say. And I think that generally it just is kind of a better looking car. However, this doesn't mean that I actually like this thing. I think that the Ballista Kanjo SJ is definitely superior to the post-loot, and it's probably one of the better Dinka vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. However, I just don't think, compared to some of the other vehicles from this DLC, that it is that good or that it stands out that much. It doesn't really do anything for its category that it's in. It doesn't really do anything for free mode or for racing. It's just kind of a cool car. If you're into older Honda Civic type vehicles, you're probably going to want to pick up a Ballista Kanjo SJ. I don't think that this thing is horrible. I just don't personally like it very much, but that's not to say that it's a bad vehicle. It's just compared to the rest of the vehicles from the DLC, it is not that good. Anyways, that's it for the Dinka Ballista Kanjo SJ. It's time to move on to the next vehicle. Next up on our list is the Imponte Ruiner ZZ8. Now the Imponte Ruiner ZZ8 is actually a pretty cool car. It's got some good customization. It's in the muscle car category and is based off of an older Camaro or maybe a Pontiac GTO, depending on which vehicle you kind of like more. Now the ZZ8 is one of the better handling muscle cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. I actually really do like how this car handles. However, at its price point, I feel like it is a little bit underwhelming because its performance, other than the handling, is quite average. The Imponte Ruiner ZZ8 goes for just over $1.3 million, and yes, you get good handling. However, the acceleration and the top speed both are quite pathetic. Not what you would expect from an American muscle car. I feel like this thing is quite backwards in its philosophy and how it works. The handling is good, but the acceleration and top speed are bad. I think that it probably should be completely opposite to that. The handling should be terrible, and the acceleration and top speed should be pretty good. However, I guess Rockstar did not feel the same way. Cool car, cool customization, just kind of underwhelming performance-wise. But regardless, it is still a pretty cool car, and it is one of the better vehicles from this DLC. However, compared to the rest, it is just not quite as good. So, let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have the Ubermacht Sentinel Classic Widebody. Now, in order to get the Sentinel Classic Widebody, you're going to have to buy the regular Sentinel Classic, and then on top of this, you're going to have to upgrade it into the Widebody for an extra $700,000. Now, the Sentinel Classic Widebody is quite an improvement over the regular Sentinel Classic in my opinion. However, the only thing that I find kind of weird is I almost feel like the handling is slightly worse on the Sentinel Classic Widebody. However, it does drift a lot better. Now, this thing is going to run you $1.35 million in order to get the Sentinel Classic and then upgrade it into the Widebody, so it is a little bit on the expensive side. However, it is a very cool vehicle, and the customization options that you get are very neat. The Sentinel Classic Widebody has decent acceleration, a decent top speed, and I would say that the handling is above average. However, it's nothing to write home about, but still a very good car nonetheless, and I think it looks absolutely fantastic. So that's pretty much it for the Sentinel Classic Widebody. It's time to move on to the next vehicle. Next up, we have the Benefactor SM722 coming in at just over $2.1 million. This is a very cool car, and it does have some actual real-world significance. The Benefactor SM722 is based heavily off of the real-life Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren Sterling Moss Edition. Now, the SM in the Benefactor SM722 stands for Sterling Moss, and 722, to my understanding, was Sterling Moss's racing number. So I think that this is kind of a cool nod that Rockstar has done to both Sterling Moss and Mercedes in real life. I think that that is very cool. Now, unfortunately, the SM722 is not exactly the greatest performing vehicle ever. It does have a little bit lackluster handling. I would say it's not exactly super planted. However, it is still a very fun car to drive. It does have very good acceleration and a pretty decent top speed. The handling is definitely this thing's biggest downfall, but the handling isn't actually that horrible. It's just not as nice as you would maybe hope for a $2.1 million car. But you can drift this thing super well, which is very nice. So if you're into drifting, the SM722 might be a car that you would consider picking up. Overall, this thing does have some good customization, and I would say the performance is above average in general. So that's pretty much it for the SM722. let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up at number 11, we have the Ubermacht Reinhardt coming in at $1.6 million. This is another very realistic looking Ubermacht vehicle in GTA Online, and it's also quite unique in this DLC, I feel like, because it is the only station wagon that we got, and it's one of very few station wagons that we have in GTA Online, and even fewer than that, we barely have any modern station wagons in this game. So I do think that the Reinhardt was a great addition with this DLC. It has fantastic handling, it is all-wheel drive as well, so it does get very good acceleration off the line, and it actually has a decent top speed. On top of this, it's also got great customization options, I think, and you can make this thing look super clean. It's very fun to drive, it handles very nicely, no understeer, no oversteer, it's really a great handling vehicle. The Ubermacht Reinhardt for $1.6 million is definitely a pretty cool car, and it is one of my more favorite ones from this DLC. However, compared to some of the ones ahead of it on this list, it doesn't quite do as much as you would maybe hope for $1.6 million, and the vehicles ahead of it are just simply better. So that's pretty much it for the Ubermacht Reinhardt. Let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up at number 10, we have the Buckingham Canada coming in at just over $1.8 million. Now the Canada is actually a pretty cool helicopter in GTA Online. Now my initial impression of this thing was that it was quite useless. However, what I have since found out is that the Canada is actually one of the fastest helicopters in Grand Theft Auto Online, if not the fastest helicopter. There's sort of a bit of a debate about this. A lot of people are saying that this is the fastest heli, there's other people that are saying it's not. So I'm not 100% sure of the truth. What I can tell you though is this thing is very fast. In addition to this, it is a 4-seater and it's priced pretty competitively at just over $1.8 million, meaning that I think most players could actually get this thing, and you will get decent use out of it because it is very quick. My initial impression of this helicopter was that it was extremely fast, and it turns out that apparently it is. It's got pretty responsive handling as well. It is upgradable in your hangar, so you can make the handling different depending on what you actually like. However, there's not much customization for this helicopter, unfortunately, but usually there isn't very much for aircraft anyways, so it's not like you're missing out on a whole lot. Overall, the Buckingham Canada is definitely a useful helicopter in GTA Online. However, it's not armed, so I couldn't really rank it any higher than this on this list. Anyways, that's it for the Buckingham Canada. Let's move on to number 9. Next up at number 9, we have the Lampadati Corsita coming in at just over $1.8 million. Now, the Lampadati Corsita is based pretty heavily off of the Maserati MC20 that just came out in real life, which is a pretty neat car. It's kind of a revival of the old MC20. Now, the Lampadati Corsita is a very fast car in a straight line. However, what this thing gets let down by is its handling a little bit. The handling of the Lampadati Corsita is not as good as you would hope for. The tail end of this car is very light, I find, which means that when you go around corners a lot of the time, the back end is just not gripped up and it will kind of spin out on you. It's not the worst car ever for handling, that's for sure, and it is made up for by its good acceleration and its relatively decent top speed as well. On top of this, it's also got some customization options, maybe not as many as you would hope for, but it does have quite a few nonetheless. Overall, the Lampadati Corsita for just over $1.8 million is a very decent car. It's just not exactly the best. What I will say is that it is a very good looking car, and with the customization options, you do get to change the look of this thing a decent amount. So that's pretty much it for the Lampadati Corsita, guys. At number 9, let's move on to number 8. At number 8, we have the Obey 10F. This goes for just under $1.7 million, and it is one of the better vehicles that was added with the Criminal Enterprises DLC. I feel like it's a long overdue vehicle into GTA Online. Obviously, we have the Obey 9F. We also have the 8F, so it was only logical that we got an updated 9F with the 10F. Of course, this is based very heavily off of an Audi R8 in real life, which is a very cool car. It has lots and lots of customization options, far more than the original 9F, which is definitely a welcome addition, that's for sure. In my opinion, the Obey 10F is one of the best sports cars in Grand Theft Auto Online, somewhere within the top 20 fastest around a circuit, so not exactly the greatest performance, but it is still a relatively decent car, and it's a fun one to have in free mode. And with all the customization options you get, you do have the ability to make your Obey 10F look different than most other people's as well. The Obey 10F has pretty good acceleration, decent enough handling, and a very good top speed. It also has an active rear spoiler, which I think is worth mentioning. That is pretty cool. There's not many cars in GTA that actually have that, so having another one is a welcome addition. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the Obey 10F. let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up, coming in at $2.25 million, we have the Obey 10F widebody. Now this is one of the coolest widebody vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. In all honesty, I think it's one of the coolest vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. This thing gets several different upgrades over the regular 10F, and it is customizable at Benny's, which means you are going to pay a little more for some of your upgrades, but you do get a lot more to customize. So that is very cool. The Obey 10F widebody also improves the performance of the regular Obey 10F by 2 spots in the sports car category around a circuit. What I can tell you is that the handling of the Obey 10F widebody is absolutely superior to that of the regular Obey 10F. It also gets several different customization options over the regular 10F like I mentioned, so that is definitely a welcome addition as well. Overall, the Obey 10F widebody for the extra $575,000 is absolutely worth your money and worth your time. This thing is so much cooler, it's got much more customization, and it does have better performance. Truly, it is a very different car than the regular 10F. So that's why it's ranked ahead of it on this list. With that being said, we are done with the Obey 10F widebody at number 7. It's time to move on to number 6. Next up, we have the Pegassi Torero XO. Now, the Pegassi Torero XO goes for just under $2.9 million, and it is one of the staple cars from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. This thing is all-wheel drive, and it does have very good performance generally. Now, there is one thing that I must mention about the Pegassi Torero XO is the downforce modifications on this thing are completely broken. They do not work, meaning that this thing, when you go around corners, the back end's going to step out on you, and you're going to lose traction a lot of the time with this vehicle, which is very unfortunate. However, I do believe that if this thing did have all of the downforce modifications working completely, it would be one of the fastest supercars in all of Grand Theft Auto Online. So that is pretty cool. Hopefully one day Rockstar actually fixes it. However, I kind of doubt that they will. The Torero XO has lots and lots of customization. It does share some customization options with the Pegassi Ignis, which is kind of its predecessor, but it does have enough unique ones to make it into something that is a little bit different. And overall, I feel like this vehicle is better looking than the Pegassi Ignis and really any other Pegassi vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. The Torero has fantastic acceleration and a super high top speed. The handling is kind of what lets it down a little bit, but the handling could be a lot worse at the same time. So for just under $2.9 million, this is definitely a pretty good vehicle to have, a pretty cool one as well, and it has definitely earned its spot as the 6th best vehicle from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. So that's it for this one. Let's move on to number 5. Next up, we have the Declasse Draugr at number 5, coming in at $1.4 million with the trade price and $1.9 million without the trade price. The Declasse Draugr is the new fastest off-road vehicle in the entire game with 4 wheels. Now, obviously this is excluding the BF400 and the Sanchez because those two are very, very quick. However, in some races you're not able to use them, and in those races where you're not able to use the Sanchez or the BF400, the new Declasse Draugr is the fastest off-road vehicle in the entire game. This thing has insanely good ground clearance, very good acceleration, a high top speed for an off-roader, and extremely good handling. It can soak up bumps like it's absolutely nothing, meaning that this thing has great off-road handling. Nothing's really going to throw this thing around. It will basically keep its direction going no matter what you throw at it. Even right now when I'm climbing over this mountain, doing all these jumps and stuff, the vehicle is really easy to control. And even when I'm flipping over and stuff, the thing is easy to get back on its toes and keep driving. Overall, the Declasse Draugr is definitely one of the best vehicles from this DLC, especially in terms of racing, because it has completely changed the off-road category in GTA Online. So that is absolutely huge. So that's pretty much it for the Declasse Draugr, coming in at number 5. Let's move on to the next best vehicle from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. Next up at number 4, we have the Benefactor LM87, coming in at just over $2.9 million, and this is the best supercar from the Criminal Enterprises DLC in terms of performance. The Benefactor LM87 is, I believe, the 3rd or 4th fastest supercar in Grand Theft Auto Online now, counting the expanded and enhanced edition of GTA Online. The LM87 is extremely quick, and once you get up to speed, the downforce on this car is absolutely insane. It also has a little bit of customization, which is nice for an actual race car. This thing is also unique because it's only a one-seater. You cannot sit another player in this thing, which kind of for free mode is not a great feature, but I do think that it makes the car a little bit more unique. The LM87 is definitely my favorite supercar from this DLC. It has done a lot for the supercars category in this game, which is very cool. And driving this thing around in free mode is an absolute blast. As you guys can see, the downforce is absolutely insane. The car doesn't even lose traction on any of these corners, which is absolutely nuts because these corners are quite sharp. Any other car would pretty much struggle with this. However, the LM87 does not struggle much at all. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for the Benefactor LM87 coming in at number 4. Let's move on to the top 3 best vehicles from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. Next up at number 3, we have the Bravado Greenwood coming in at just over $1.1 million. The Bravado Greenwood is a pretty unique vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, and it's definitely one of the best that was added with the Criminal Enterprises DLC. Now, a lot of you are probably going to be like, why is this thing this high on the list? It's actually trash. Well, the reason for this is because I feel like the Greenwood is one of the most useful vehicles from the DLC, especially in free mode. It is a 4-seater, so of course you can drive around with 3 friends. In addition to this, it's also a pretty fast car, and for a muscle car, it actually handles very decently. In addition to this, it's also got lots of customization, but the main reason that it's this high on the list is because this is an Imani Tech vehicle, meaning that it can have a missile lock-on jammer, so oppressors, jets, helicopters cannot even lock onto your vehicle. In addition to this, it also has an armor upgrade, which allows the Bravado Greenwood to take 12 RPGs or 12 homing missiles so long as there is somebody inside of the vehicle. It also has an oil slick proximity mine dropper, so if somebody's chasing you, you can drop these and spin them out behind you. So the Bravado Greenwood is very, very useful as a free mode vehicle. It's also a pretty fast muscle car, somewhere just outside of the top 10 fastest in the entire game. It has pretty good acceleration, it's got an okay top speed, and the handling is definitely its best feature. So that's pretty much it for the Bravado Greenwood at $1.1 million. This thing is an absolute budget Imani Tech vehicle, and it's truly one of the best Imani Tech vehicles in the entire game. So that's pretty much it for the Bravado Greenwood coming in at number 3. Let's move on to number 2. Next up at number 2, we have the DeClassy Vigoro ZX. Now the DeClassy Vigoro ZX is at number 2 because this thing is one of the best vehicles from this DLC. It is now the fastest muscle car in Grand Theft Auto Online when the HSW upgrade is applied to it. Yes, this thing has an HSW upgrade, which is another reason that it is at number 2. Now the DeClassy Vigoro ZX is quite quick at the best of times. Without the HSW upgrade, it is a very close second place to the Bravado Buffalo STX, and in some cases I think that the DeClassy Vigoro ZX would actually smoke the Bravado Buffalo STX. With the HSW upgrade, however, this thing will absolutely ruin the Bravado Buffalo STX. With the HSW upgrade as well, this thing becomes the highest top speed vehicle in all of Grand Theft Auto Online, topping out at about 160 miles per hour, which blows everything else in the entire game out of the water. Even some of the other HSW vehicles, the fastest that they can get to with the Karen S95 is 153 miles per hour. So the DeClassy Vigoro ZX is much, much quicker. It also has very good handling for a muscle car, obviously good acceleration, and a very good top speed as well. In addition to this, it also has fantastic customization options, and I think that it truly is one of the best muscle cars in the entire game. And on top of it all, we've been waiting to get a modern Camaro into GTA Online for years and years, and now with the DeClassy Vigoro ZX, we finally have one. So that's why this thing is at number 2, and of course, now it's time to move on to the number 1 vehicle from the Criminal Enterprises DLC in Grand Theft Auto Online, and you guys probably already know what it is. At number 1, of course, we have the Obey Omni EGT, coming in at about $1.6 million. However, when this video is out, this thing is actually on sale, so make sure you check that out if you're watching this video within the first, say, 5 days that it releases. The Obey Omni EGT is an electric vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, which typically I'm not really a fan of. However, this thing is so useful that I decided that it truly is the best vehicle from this DLC. It has full-time all-wheel drive, which is very nice, and of course it's electric, so it has fantastic acceleration up to a piss-weak top speed. So that is this thing's one point where it absolutely sucks. The top speed of this car is very, very low. It does have relatively good handling and good acceleration, like I said. In addition to this, like I said, it's also an Imani Tech vehicle, having the exact same stats as the Bravado Greenwood, being able to take 12 RPGs and 12 homing missiles with the armor upgrade, and you can equip it with a missile lock-on jammer or the remote control device if you so choose. Of course, it also has the oil slick proximity mine dropper, so if people are chasing you, you can spin them out using this. to try to get away a little bit better. Overall, I feel like the Obey Omni EGT at its price point is by far the best Imani Tech vehicle in the entire game. It looks fantastic, it's got some good customization options as well, it has an active rear spoiler which is pretty rare, and it just truly is the best vehicle from the Criminal Enterprises DLC. It's done the most for the game, it's great for free mode, not good for racing, but free mode is really all that matters for most people. So there you have it guys. That is it for my ranking of the Criminal Enterprises DLC vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Of course, this list is 100% factual and you are allowed to tell me this in the comments down below, as well as your own opinion. However, just know that if it's different than mine, it is wrong. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, a like is of course appreciated, if not dislike. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.